October 11, 2014 from Oriole Park at Camden Yards in Baltimore, Maryland. It was Game 2 of the ALCS between the Kansas City Royals and the Baltimore Orioles. And on the mound for the O's was Bud Norris, and on the mound for the Royals was Yordano Ventura. So Kansas City would lead off in the top of the first, and Escobar would end up getting out. And then Aoki got a single, and Cain got a double, so he had runners in scoring position with one out as Hosmer came to bat, and he hit a single that drove in Aoki and Cain, and that would make it 2-0 Royals. Butler would get out, and then Gordon struck out, and the top of the first came to a close, but not after the Royals scored 2 runs. Then in the bottom of the first, Ventura would set down the Orioles in order, and he ended up striking out the last batter, Adam Jones. So now, after 1, it was 2-0 Kansas City. And in the top of the second, Norris would end up letting up a leadoff single to Salvador Perez, but then he got Infante to ground into a double play, and Moustakas got out. And so we went to the bottom of the second. Nelson Cruz would lead off the inning with a walk, and then Pearce ended up in a fielder's choice, and Cruz was out at second. J.J. Hardy then walked, so we had 2 on with 1 out, and Flaherty walked, so now we had the bases juiced with 1 out, and Joseph hit a sac fly, and that would bring Pearce in, as it was now 2-1 Kansas City over Baltimore, as the Orioles had cut the lead by 1 run. Shoop would end up getting out, and the second came to a close, but not after the O's got a run on the board. So after 2, it was Royals 2, Orioles 1. So now in the top of the third, Escobar would ground out, and Aoki would get out, and then Cain ended up reaching on an infield single, and Hosmer got a single. So now we had 2 on and 2 out, as we had runners on the corner for Billy Butler, and he hit a double, which would bring in Cain and move Hosmer over to third, but then Gordon struck out, and so that would bring the top half of the inning to a close, but not after the Royals had put a run on the board, as it was now 3-1 Kansas City over Baltimore heading into the bottom of the third. Moustakas would end up grounding out, but then Diaz got a double, so Adam Jones came up to bat, and he ended up hitting a 2-run home run that tied this game at 3 runs apiece. So it was now tied up at 3, but then the next 2 batters got out as Cruz popped up, and then Pearce struck out. So after 3, the game was tied at 3 runs apiece. So now in the top of the fourth, Perez would end up getting out, and so would Infante, and Moustakas came to the plate with 2 out and nobody on, and he hit a home run as he gave Kansas City back the lead at 4-3 in the top of the fourth. Escobar would strike out, and that would bring us to the bottom of the fourth, where J.J. Hardy would lead off with a strikeout. Flaherty then popped out, and Joseph got a single, but then Scope would end up grounding out, and that would bring us to the end of the fourth with the score 4-3, Royals over Orioles. So now in the top of the fifth, Aoki would end up grounding out, and Cain would get a single, and that would be it for Bud Norris, as Branch would come in to pitch. Of course, then Branch got out of the inning as he set down the next couple batters, and we would go to the bottom of the fifth with the score still 4-3. Moustakas then flied out, and then Diaz got a single, and Jones got a single. So now we had runners on the corners for Nelson Cruz. He hit into a fielder's choice, but Diaz crossed the plate. Jones was out at second. So now the game was tied up at 4 runs apiece. Pearce then got out, and that would bring the fifth to a close, but not after the O's had tied this game up. So now heading into the top of the sixth with the game tied at 4 runs apiece. The first couple batters would get out, Perez and Infante. Moustakas then got a single, but Escobar got out, and we were headed to the bottom of the sixth. J.J. Hardy and Flaherty both flew out, and that would be it for Ventura as Finnegan came in to relieve him, and he let up a single to Joseph, but then he ended up getting Scope to ground out, and that would be it for the sixth inning as we were headed to the seventh with the game still tied at 4. Aoki would get a leadoff walk, and then Dyson would come in to pinch run for Aoki. Miller would then relieve Branch, and now Cain was at bat, and he got out, and then Dyson got caught stealing, and Hosmer ended up popping out, and so that brought us to the bottom of the seventh. Herrera was still on the mound for the Royals. Moustakas would end up reaching on an error by Herrera, and then Diaz walked, and so now we had 2 on and no out. Jones struck out, and now Nelson Cruz came up, and he ended up getting a single, so it was bases juiced with just 1 out. But then Herrera would end up getting Pearce and Hardy both to pop out, and so that would be it for the 7th, as the Orioles stranded the bases loaded. So now in the top of the 8th, Miller was on the mound for Baltimore. He would end up getting Butler to ground out, and he struck out Gordon. He then was relieved by O'Day, and O'Day struck out Perez, as that would bring us to the bottom of the 8th. Wade Davis was now on the mound for the Royals, and he would end up striking out Flaherty, and he got Joseph to pop out, and then Scope ended up getting a single, but Markakis grounded out, and that would be it for the 8th inning. So now we headed to the 9th with a game tied up at 4 runs apiece. Infante got a single to lead off the inning, and then Britton came in to relieve O'Day. Gore came in to pinch run for Infante, and Moustakas would end up sacrificing Gore over to second. So now it was 1 on, 1 out with a runner in scoring position, and Escobar at the plate, and he hit a double, and that brought Gore across home, and the score was now 5-4, Royals over Orioles. So then Dyson came to the plate, and he ended up reaching first on an error by Flaherty. And so now we had runners on the corners for Cain, as Escobar was on third. Cain hit a single that brought Escobar in and moved Dyson over to second. So now it was 6-4, as the Royals had scored 2 runs in the inning. And now with just 1 out and still 2 on, Hosmer came to the plate, and he struck out, and then Billy Butler struck out. And so we were headed to the bottom of the 9th with the score 6-4, Kansas City over Baltimore. So now Greg Holland came in to pick up the save for the Royals, and the Orioles were down to their last 3 outs in this game, where they needed to get 2 runs or else they would go down 2-0 in this series. Diaz ended up popping out, and Jones grounded out. Nelson Cruz then came to the plate with 2 outs, and he hit a single. So now we had the tying run at the plate, and Pearce struck out, and this game came to a close as Greg Holland picks up the save, and the Royals win 6-4 as they win by 2 runs, and they now take a 2-game lead in the ALCS on the road, and they'll be heading back to Kansas City for Game 3. Wade Davis gets the win. O'Day gets the loss. As I said, Holland picked up the save. Escobar, Cain, Butler, and Hosmer all had RBIs in this game for the Royals. Hosmer had 2 RBIs, and everybody else had 1. Diaz and Jones and Cruz each had 2 hits. So did Joseph for the O's. And Jones had 2 RBIs, and Cruz had 1, as did Joseph as well. Lorenzo Cain was 4 for 5 for the Royals. He crossed home twice, and he had that 1 RBI. Hosmer was 2 for 4. Moustakas hit the game's only home run for the Royals, and Jones hit the only home run for the Orioles. Cain, Butler, and Escobar all had doubles, as did Diaz. And on the mound, both pitchers didn't make it too far in this game, much like Game 1. Ventura only lasted 5 2/3, and he let up 4 earned runs. He had 3 strikeouts and 3 walks. He also had 5 hits let up and a home run. Contrastly, Bud Norris only lasted 4 1/3 innings, also allowing 4 earned runs. He let up 9 hits, no walks, and 3 strikeouts and 1 home run. But it was the relief of both teams. Both teams' bullpens pitched pretty well, excluding, the lone run that O'Day ended up letting up, and then Britton let up a run as well. But over for Kansas City, though, Finnegan, Herrera, Davis, and Holland were lights out. They didn't let up any runs. So the Royals take the 2-game lead as they win this game 6-4 over the Orioles.